We're live.
Good, we are on. Good morning, good Friday morning. I guess for half the country, more than half the country, it's Good Friday afternoon, but not the Good Friday. So I am so excited today. Lynne Katzmann is a friend. She's one of the smartest leaders in senior living. Every time you say that, you sort of are modest, but this is so true. You're changing the industry, and you're wise. And I just, every time I talk to you, you get my wheels running and thinking, and I just really appreciate that. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about, the next generation. This is maybe senior living, I don't know, 3.0 or something like that. But first, our intro. Hey guys, Steve Moran here.
That's great.
So I love that. Every time we watch, I've played it 6 or 8 times. Of course, watched it before we put up, and I just really, really like it. So Lynne, let's start with a little bit about who you are and Juniper and your journey, and then we'll jump into this question of what about boomers?
Okay. So I'm Lynne Katzmann. I started Juniper when I was a baby 33 years ago. And Juniper has has always been in senior living, but has evolved as the industry has evolved. And I come from a finance and economics background. And so Juniper was originally structured to purchase undermanaged communities. You can figure out what that means. And we financed them well so that there would be money left from operations to continue to support programming and the people who worked in the building rather than only servicing debt. And that was very important to us. We had other people lease the buildings, operate the buildings on our behalf for the first, about 12 or 13 years. And after that, we began to develop and operate on our own. So we have evolved from a company that was mostly a financing, a capital engineering idea, to one which is involved in development originally and now operations. We've also gone from working only in one segment of the industry, skilled nursing and rehabilitation, which is what existed in 1988, to today where we operate across the entire continuum. So since the company was started, assisted living came into its own. Independent living has changed dramatically. CCRCs, while there before, have taken on a different role within the continuum of service that we provide. So that Juniper's been across all of that. I think the thing which has been most fun for me, there are actually 3. One is the people like you, Steve, that I've gotten to know that are my colleagues and my friends, and with whom I share a lot of time, but also the ability to learn about our industry and share ideas about our industry, and about how we function as individuals within that. My team is wonderful. Most of my my close-in team members have been with me for over 2 decades, which is a remarkable thought in and of itself. The second thing that I think has really kept me going is the culture that this wonderful group of people has created at Juniper. We have a very strong culture that's based not just on the work that we do, but on the purpose we serve. And our mission is to nurture the spirit of life in individuals. And what that means to us is simply everybody ought to live a full life, whatever that means to them, and in whatever stage they are, either physically or from a chronological perspective. We all deserve to live fully every day we're alive. So that's important. And people join Juniper Not necessarily because hopefully they understand that, but they stay because of that. And that's become very important, and it's really fueled who we are today, and it gives me great joy. And then the third thing that I think is really great about Juniper is that we've been able to innovate. We have investors, always have for 33 years. They are great people who believe in a double bottom line and have encouraged us to do some of the innovative work we've done. So I'll stop there.
That's cool. And I want to just add one thing as a testament to your culture. You made a rather bold decision about vaccines and team members, perhaps the first ones that did that, where you said you either have to be vaccinated or you can't work here. And most operators, most leaders I've talked to about it sort of took a big breath and said, I don't think I can do that. I'd lose too many people. And I think on one hand, it's sort of easy to say, well, it's a testament to your leadership to be willing to do that. But I think the better story is that you lost very few people in doing that. The people were so committed to the organization, to you as a leader, that they trusted you, that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, and you know, the way we led during COVID, you know, I travel a lot, or did prior to COVID, and spent a lot of time out in the field talking to a variety of people. We always saw each other at many conferences, Steve.
Yep.
And so my team really took control of most of the day-to-day operations and the strategy involved in that. And it worked very well for us as a company. When COVID hit, it was clear that we all needed to be a part of it, but that there had to be a decision maker, and I'm the fiduciary. So that role fell to me, and I took on a different role in leadership during that. But throughout the entire time, there was a group of people at Juniper we called the Corona crew. So they weren't all my team. They were people from throughout the company who had a functional expertise and a willingness to devote the energy to serve our common good. And so we worked together every single day from March until middle of July, and then worked just 5 days a week until September, or sometime in there, 3 days, and then 1 day. You know, so we still meet weekly, but that group, when in October, when the government announced that they would be beginning the vaccine process, the vaccine distribution process, we got together and we asked the question, you know, what are we going to do? And the reason I say this is I appreciate your saying that it was my leadership, but it wasn't. This was a collaborative decision at Juniper, and it was a unanimous decision. Everyone on that team, from all over the company at different levels and different places, believed that we needed to move forward, and that the only reasonable way to move forward would be through vaccination.
Great. So let's get to the question at hand. I have felt for a number of years that I'm at an age that I'm old enough that I qualify to live in a senior living community. Probably not quite where I need to be in my stage of life yet, but I think a lot about it. And I've spent a lot of time talking to aging leaders, people like Chip Conley and Ken Dykewald, and people inside the industry, leaders. And would you move into senior living? And so in many cases, it's to senior living leaders. And I see great hesitancy to move into on the part of everybody. It's like we're selling a product that nobody wants. So you can either be totally depressed by that, which I'm not, or you can be totally excited by that, believing that there's got to be a path to a better way to create something where you and I can hardly wait to move into, right? Because it'll make those later years in our lives amazing. And so I just like to have you talk a little bit about what you're thinking about that.
Sure. Well, that's a fun, like you, I could be there. I'm not there. I will tell you that when I'm traveling to my communities where they have apartments, I generally stay in an apartment on campus, and I love staying in my buildings versus a hotel. Now, I will tell you that to live there full time for me is a question of programming at this point in time. And so a lot of what Juniper is doing now is taking a look not just about the environments that we create, and there's a lot of talk about what should people, where are people going to want to live and what does that look like? I'm a believer that I want to live in community. So
Right.
for me, that means living with other people. They don't all have to look like me. They don't all have to think like me. And frankly, I'd prefer it if they didn't. But I do need to live with other people. I need to be, it needs to be easy for me to engage. So there are a number of things that we're working on. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about Connect for Life, which you've heard me talk about before. But post-COVID, I think the industry acknowledges that we provide care. The question is how we do it and how we do it in a way that promotes health and a positive and productive lifestyle. So, people don't move in with us generally unless they have a need. And those needs vary from social to physical and function. There are a variety of needs. But I think what's interesting is how you provide those services. And so Connect for Life uses the high touch, high tech vehicle to do that. To me, it's really worked, and it's working even better now. And so we're really thrilled about that. So where are we going with that in the future? We've been very lucky during COVID to meet some new people that I never would have thought we would have partnered with. Early on, you talked about our vaccination approach. We also took a different approach to testing. And in March, we decided we would test everyone to try to understand a little bit more so that we knew how to handle the pandemic. We needed to find someone who could test our population on a regular basis. Long story short, we found a couple of different labs, both interestingly based in Texas. They were both very helpful. They've served us religiously and continue to do so. One of those labs is a company called Decina, and they were not originally a lab company. They are a data and analytics company, and their claim to fame is algorithms that are useful within healthcare environments to predict outcomes. But during COVID, they continued that work, and they opened up a molecular lab in Texas with process engineering and all kinds of things. They were able to do a lot of throughput. Reason I tell you this is because we've learned about their data and analytics capabilities. And over COVID, we've been able to use their research to help stratify our residents. So we now use our data from testing and from our EHR to be able to understand how to keep people healthier. And one of the things we're going to be doing for the future is using data, which what I'm dubbing to provide precision health. You've heard probably of precision medicine, which is when they get to know your body and your specific genomic sequence and makeup, and can build a drug or a treatment intervention for you. And they tend to be very targeted, and it's thought to be the future. What we're working on with Decina is a precision health program, which will work with not only health data, but individual data on preferences and determinants of health, things like nutrition, sleep patterns, fitness, all of those things. So for us, that takes the healthcare portion, and we'll move it in the future to something that we think is extremely exciting, using data as a means to help us provide people with a pathway to live their best life. So that's one of the things we've been working on. That is also in concert with a new engagement program that we are piloting at 3 or 4 communities now. It started at one, but we're moving into a couple of others, and it's called Catalyst. Catalyst is really interesting because it is takes all of the services that an individual who lives with us needs, whether that be food or care or housekeeping or access to purposeful activity. And it says all of those things are needed for health and well-being. And what we need to do is understand how to schedule and provide a mix of those things that meets your personal needs. So, Steve, you started by asking, what do I want? I would love it. You know, I'm a nerd. I like travel. I like a whole bunch of things that maybe, I know you like some of them, Steve, but you may not like all of them.
That's right.
And so, you know, if people can get to know me and understand my functional capabilities and make suggestions to me and then facilitate my being able to do them without them looking like they're hovering over me, that's really cool. And so that's the kind of programming that I'm talking about. Something that enables me to live the life I choose, to participate in the way I want, while facilitating my abilities to do that and making it easier for me to do things I either want to do or say I want to do. It may be different.
Okay, so I have 3 areas that I want to touch on. I don't know whether we can get them all, and I'm going to throw them all at you, and you can pick what you want to, whether you want to tackle 1, 2, or 3. So I'm going to start with sort of the fun one. Chip Conley puts out, who the Airbnb modern elder. I know you know who he is. Big Burning. He's part on the board of directors of Burning Man. He sent out an email this morning where he talked about being in the white sands of New Mexico, and he's wandering around out there, and he comes across this young couple from Belgium, I believe, and they were sitting on a blanket eating, having sort of a hors d'oeuvres kind of a meal in the nude. And he got to talking to them, and they invited him to sit down. And he said, well, I don't know that I really want to do that with my extra 19 COVID pounds. But he said, I did it. And I had this wonderful visit. It was a wonderful, wonderful story. And while I'm not sure I'd be ready to go sit in the sand dune nude with other people, like that may be too far for me. I guess I will find myself thinking, how do I get that kind? How do I maintain that kind, the ability to have those kinds of sort of crazy free spirit adventures as long as possible? The second question is my single biggest thing about senior living that scares me, if you will, is that I don't want to be around this monolithic group of old people. I want to, most of my friends today, and I have a sense this is largely true for you. Most of my friends and my colleagues are 10 to 15 years younger than I am, or younger than that. There are some exceptions. And then the third thing is that you talk today, and you've often talked about the reality that we're selling care. Do you see us getting to a point where people are moving in before they need care, before the quality of life is for the quality of life, or do you think that's where the dividing line is?
Yeah, so let me answer the last 2 things about intergenerational.
Yep.
And moving in early. So one of the things we're doing with Catalyst is we're taking a look at engagement programming and thinking about it differently. We're saying, I want to do something with people. I don't want something done for me. And I talked about this earlier in another session you and I did together. And I think that's really important. I think our generation, and I think most people today, actually prefer to be engaged in something rather than to just be a passive participant, to be active versus passive. And I think the way to make that happen is to use the spaces, our environments, as community centers and offer programming which is the same as the program, or at least includes some of the same things which are offered in the community. We have space that other people don't have. Yep. It's not utilized all the time. And that space can maintaining safety and security in an appropriate way be utilized not just by the people who live in our community, but by others who have similar interests. So theater, we've done a lot with theater. We have a theater in several of our communities. And, why not make that theater available? We have a theater group. It doesn't just have to be our members. It can be people from the community. It becomes richer, not only for our residents, but it exposes people outside our four walls or our many walls to what we do. And people begin to see it breaks down the barriers of ageism. Yeah. And I think it opens up a community. So think about it this way, Steve. A middle ground might be a place where all the apartments are filled with older adults, but where the public spaces support a variety of activities with people from the community at large, as well as our residents during the day. It could be more than that. You could have multi-generational housing as well. But in the least, right now we're fairly, regulations don't permit that kind of living environment where we provide the kind of services we currently provide to people with functional needs, with ADLs out and with functional mobility issues. But we can create something in the interim. So to the answer to your question in my mind is it does need to be integrated. My watchword is integration. And we need to integrate people of different ages, of different interests, that look different together, so that we are essentially a microcosm of the community at large. We have the space and we have the inclination. So that's my answer to your two last questions. As far as having a blast and doing fun things,
yeah,
I don't think anybody's going to tell you no, Steve. And I'm not going to let anybody tell me what I can't do. And I think that energy and desire and some kind of societal acceptance will allow that. I think our biggest stumbling block or obstacle is regulation. And the constant push-pull between keeping someone safe and allowing them to experience life as they choose. And the fact that carries risk. So that's one of the things that I think we're going to have to resolve moving forward.
Do you see a time where we go to more of a boutique model for senior living? So there's going to be an aging hippies rockers senior living community and an artist community and intellectual communities, and I don't know. Do you see that?
I think that's certainly possible. I mean, you've got that Margaritaville.
That's true.
Today, people who love Burning Man and go every year, Steve. We haven't gone every year. May want a Burning Man community. I think people who you see it with religious affiliations.
Yep.
So I think that's very possible, but I don't think it's the only model that will happen. I do think that, economies of scale matter. One of the issues that we have to address is what a lot of people call the middle market.
Yep.
The fact that there is strong support on one end from the public, from the private side on the other, and the majority of people fall in the middle. And we're living longer, we have greater needs. Frankly, we could use more assistance than we get, and that's expensive. So we're going to have to find some different ways of doing things. And I think that we're going to have to use technology for doing that. I think there's a lot in there that is going to have to change. But in order to live your best life, there are choices. we're going to either have to find ways to allow that to happen cost effectively. And one way to do that is by living in community, economies of scale. So boutique, when you think about boutique, you think small. How small will depend in part on income level.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. Although I would say, in some sense, I'm a huge fan of the Ritz-Carlton model, how they do business, and in some sense, it's a boutique, almost cultish following of people who stay in Ritz-Carltons and who are very, very loyal, and they're still pretty good size. So, I think that you could do, boutique. I guess in my reference means sort of specialty as opposed to necessarily size, but I agree. Boutique traditionally also means smaller. So I want to actually circle back to COVID for just a minute. You have everybody vaccinated, and yet you've got some cases. And so I'd like to have you talk a little bit about what you're finding and what you're thinking and what you think it means and what it's going to mean in the path forward.
Yep. I'm glad you brought that up because over the last 2 weeks, so first set the stage. At this point, 96% of our team members and 98% of our residents have been vaccinated. And we have a means to vaccinate new residents and new team members. So that is happening, and I'm thrilled with those results. But you're right, we've had 7 new positives in the last, I would say, 10 to 14 days. And the reason I say that is we test on a regular basis, and so that's what's shown. What's interesting is that all of these people have been vaccinated. Okay, so what first went through my mind is, okay, all of these people had the Pfizer vaccine, right? So what do they say about it? The efficacy is 95%. So that means that 5 out of 100, it may not quite work for.
Yep.
Right? So if you vaccinate 1,000 people, and we've done far more than that, but just for the sake of argument, say we did 1,000 people, that would be 50.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got 7. So maybe that explains it. But then we did something else with our wonderful partners. We're able to sequence all of the samples. And what we learned is the samples are not SARS-CoV-2, the old version that we were used to seeing. It's 4 cases of the UK variant, B117, I believe 2 of the South African version or variant, and 1 of the Brazilian variant. 1 resident, 6 staff members, 2 symptomatic, nobody seriously ill. So what does that say?
How many buildings?
How many buildings? It's across 25 buildings.
But yeah, are they concentrated or are they just?
Oh no. So let me think. They are in 1, 2, 3, 5 buildings.
Okay.
5 different buildings. So, and they are in 3 different states.
So what does that mean to the organization?
Well, the organization, because we continued to test with PCR testing on a regular basis, we're able to identify it early and make sure that those people are not in the building for any length of time. In other words, we isolate them. They go home until they're better. And actually, the quarantine time for some of these variants is longer. So they will be out until that works. And then we retest everyone in that community to make sure there are no other cases. So to date, it has not spread. And we will continue to do that protocol because it works, or it seems to work at this point in time. But what we're learning is that the vaccine definitely works, but the new strains of COVID are highly transmissible, and they are the dominant strain that's being transmitted with all over the country today. So, and that the vaccines, while they work to some degree, are not as effective potentially, maybe this is what it says, against these variants. So what does that say to me? Here's the what do you do about it piece is I think you keep on testing on a regular basis. We can't let our guard down. I think that's really important. I think we have to vaccinate as many people in the community as possible, because the more people that get vaccinated, the fewer people will develop COVID. The fewer cases of COVID, the fewer new strains we'll see, and the quicker we'll return to whatever the new normal is likely to be. But lastly, you got a mask. And as much as I don't know about you, I'm thrilled that we're sitting in rooms alone. Yep. Because I don't have to wear my mask for myself. It's a pain. Nobody likes to wear them, but we've gotten used to them, and we're going to have to continue wearing them. And to that point, Steve, I know I told you this before, but I really think it's important. Do you know how many cases of flu there were in the country? I heard this yesterday. I haven't verified.
I know it was really, really low.
21.
In the whole country?
That's what I was told. So even if it's 2,100, Steve,
yep.
Think about that. Yep. Think about that. I think we look at 60,000 deaths from flu-related issues a year in a normal year. We haven't seen that. And, we've known that's the case since last summer when Australia, which was in the southern hemisphere, had no cases of flu.
Yep.
So masks work against communicable disease. I mean, if we think about what's the long-term learning from this, a lot of the infection prevention we really ought to do anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I mean, nobody loves masks, right? But it seems clear that they save lives and save misery. And so, maybe masks are the new normal forever indoors. I hope not, but, we've got to stay safe and people safe. Well, Lynne, we're out of time. Thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation. Appreciate your pushing and pulling our industry forward. And I can hardly wait to see you. I think there are going to be a few in-person conferences yet this year, so I'm looking forward to hoping I'll get to see you there. To those of you who are in the audience, thank you for watching. I want to remind you that we do have a texting committee. Texting community that we'd love to have you join. We send out some bonus stuff. We don't do it real often, a couple times a month. You text 916-659-5287. Use the keyword TV, and I'll know that you came from here. The one other thing I want to tell you about this that has come to my attention with some complaints is when you do this, you're going to get a return form to add a little more information. It will ask you for your birth date. I don't know why they do that. I think it's so they don't have kids out there. If you don't want to tell us the birthday, make something up. Nobody's going to check it. Just put it in there. But we'd love to have you part of that community. Again, Lynne, thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.